And we hit pay dirt pretty early on at Polaroid and came up with this new technology for making Polaroid films. And so we had to get EPA approval to go to large-scale manufacturing. So there's a document called a low-volume exemption and a pre-manufacturing notification. We dutifully filled those forms out and sent them to Washington, D.C. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited. And after several months, it got rejected. Not because of toxicity, not because of environmental impact. What is this guy talking about non-covalent derivatization? Is he crazy? Is he high? They didn't know what was going on. So Polaroid put me on an airplane, and I flew to Washington, D.C. to go talk to the EPA about non-covalent derivatization. The first time in my life I'd been on an airplane, I'm holding a briefcase of these overhead transparencies, and I'm standing at and I go and I meet the branch chief of the Office of Pollution Prevention and Toxics. Paul asked us, wait a minute. Remember the kid that I followed into the research lab when I was a music major? It was him. I've known this kid my whole life. I could say, no, wait a minute. Look at this technology that Polaroid has here. It is environmentally benign. It is non-toxic. It is using water. It's using low energy. And I'm going to struggle with the EPA to get this through. And it's better for us to use the 7-step synthesis of all the organic solvents in the nasty because it's different. Isn't a fait accompli that new technology that's going to be environmentally benign by definition will have to be new? We're going to have to figure something out here. And so that's kind of, so we got talking about it, and we said, you know, do people really think about environmental inputs in toxicology when they invent stuff? Well, no, they really don't. This is like 1991, 1990 time frame. And I was saying, you know, scientists love their meetings. There is 1,000 meetings every week somewhere on the planet. I promise, somewhere on the planet tomorrow morning there is a group of scientists talking about the diseases of the third toe of the left foot. Okay, we have science meetings about everything. Do we talk about making environmentally benign things that are safe? No, it's absent. And so the work that Paul was doing in the EPA and this perception came to say, this is an opportunity to change the way we do science, to create a science in a scientific and technical discourse to actually talk about how to make safe molecules, and to elevate it, recognizing all of the moral and ethical components that are in it, but elevating it into the science community to be about hardcore science, talking about the language of chemistry as the most noble pursuit to make safe materials. And so that's when this all started, and Paul and I, we you know, he did so many things. It was such a pleasure to help him do all the things, his brilliant mind of his to how to strategically do things. I love to be able to help. We started the Presidential Green Chemistry Challenge Award to shine a spotlight and have industry actually nominate technologies that they believe were consistent with this new field called green chemistry. It started in 1995, 1996 during President Clinton's administration. It survived transition to the Bush administration, survived transition to the Obama administration. It's now 14, 15 years strong. Every year, 5 awards again. Industry wants to do this, all right? But I gotta go back to my life story for a second, because at this point, Paul and I, we wrote the book Green Chemistry, we wrote the 12 principles, we did all this, and I'm operating at this level of saying this is good for industry, this is good for the world, this is an important thing. And disaster hit yet again in a it's an awful way. I lost my 2-year-old son to a birth defect. My son John was born with a disease called biliary atresia, in which his liver was completely detached from his intestines. And he got an emergency surgery after about a week of life that kept him alive to try to get a transplant, and by the time things happened, it was too late. And at 2 years old, I lost him. So I come up here and I brag about, ooh, I was on Celebrity Magazine, ooh, I have all these patents, ooh, I was this great student at Princeton. Imagine staring at the ceiling the evening of my son's funeral, asking myself, what if something I touched caused my son's birth defect and ultimate death? What if something, heaven forbid, I got an award for, caused my disease? I didn't feel like the most awesome chemist on the planet. I was probably the most prolific synthetic organic chemist my age. I had synthesized thousands of new molecules. By every metric, I was the industrial chemist du jour. But I realized something. I was familiar with Pete's book on endocrine disruptors. I knew these things at some emotional level, but I spent 4 years as an undergraduate and 3.5 years as a graduate student. I never had a class in toxicology. I never had a seminar on environmental impacts. Come to think of it, not one college or university in the country has any such course required or even probably offered, but certainly not required. Now think about that for a second. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, nurses, architects, every profession has some kind of a licensure program to make sure that they can practice their field safely. My father was an electrician. He couldn't come to your house and change a light bulb unless he had a document saying he can do it safely. Yet in chemistry, anyone can make a molecule that has never existed before, potentially making the most potent neurotoxin in history, and nowhere in their training have they ever been required to demonstrate any ability to predict that or know that. And that is still true today. We want to change the world. We want to make safe materials. You think we got to start with how we train scientists? Okay? The economic arguments are obvious. Okay? I can put up a graph and show you how DuPont, okay, in 2004, DuPont's R&D budget was $1 billion. In 2004, DuPont's environmental compliance budget was $1 billion. They spent the same amount of money inventing the future as they did making sure that they were compliant with environmental regulations. So the CEO one day says, from now on, I want all my scientists to only invent environmentally benign, non-toxic. Oh, wait a minute. Not one of them have had a class in toxicology. Not one of them have. This isn't all about motivation. There's a skills deficit. And that skills deficit must be filled with true ability. And we cannot sacrifice the excellence of problem solving. Our economy is dependent on excellent solving problems. And so as an interesting statistic, so I got very frustrated. I left Polaroid and I went to the University of Massachusetts and I created a green chemistry PhD program. So decided to take on academia first on and create a PhD program that required students to learn everything in chemistry, but add a one-semester course in mechanistic toxicology, add a one-semester course in environmental mechanisms, add a one-semester course in law and policy. Over the course of 9 years, I had 120 students pass through that program. Right, undergraduates and graduate students. Now, this is UMass Boston. They're all inner-city children, people underrepresented in the sciences. The average time it took one of these students to get a job in industry was 3 days. The longest any of these students took looking for a job was 2 weeks because she turned down the first couple of job offers. Industry is constantly asking, we want these skills. We will hire these skills. Now, it's not to say instead of someone who can solve a problem. It's in addition. There is no such thing as a green chemist. A medicinal chemist who knows green chemistry is a better medicinal chemist. Someone who works in the electronics industry who knows green chemistry is a better in the electronics industry. This ups the game to be more competitive in the global marketplace and more efficient in the product for all the things that Terry's explaining we need to do. So after 10 years in academia, I met this man named Jim Babcock. And one day I was musing to him. I spent 10 years in industry. There were things I liked, things I didn't like. I spent 10 years in academia. There were things I liked, things I didn't like. Did okay in both of those things. But you know, I'd love to reinvent them both. Oh man, if I could just start my own company and do industry the way I want to do it, and create a nonprofit and create pedagogic components for education the way that I think it has to be, and get a group of people to help me. Oh man, but you know, oh well, pass the line. Well, this guy looks at me and he says, let's do it. And this generous, wonderful person opened up his life to me, and he gave me the funding, and we started the Warner Babcock Institute for Green Chemistry. It is a dream come true. If anyone's in Wilmington, Massachusetts, north of Boston someday, come and see this thing. It is a 42,000 square foot research facility. It has something like 35 students, you know, not students, employees that have been trained in toxicology, been trained in environmental mechanisms, world-class beakers and flasks people that are working round the clock to invent solutions for different companies. In 4.5 years, We have filed over 250 provisional patents. We have 5 products on the market, another 5 products coming around, doubled in size every year, and in history's worst economy, we've been cash positive for over a year. Not in spite of green chemistry, but because of green chemistry. If you have things that have superior performance, superior cost, and are environmentally benign and non-toxic, there are no barriers to commercialization. And it becomes, at the end of the day, a hardcore science problem. But at the same time, we also started the Beyond Benign Foundation. And the Beyond Benign organization is a nonprofit, and this is my dream, this is my vision, is that there are 670 colleges and universities in the United States that offer degrees in chemistry. 670 of them. Right now, none of them require toxicology and environmental mechanisms. I'm giving myself 5 years, and in 5 years I want 500 of them to do it. And we've created this groundswell of support, modeling it after Tony Cortese's presidential sustainability at the universities program, but we're doing it a little bit smaller scale, focusing on chemistry departments. And we have an initial board that contains UC Berkeley, that contains University of Arizona, that contains University of Minnesota. We have a cross-section, big colleges, little colleges, early career scientists, late career scientists. And there's a 14-person steering committee, and we're going to do it. And our mission is that there's going to be a day where no student graduates with a degree, patted on the top of the head, sent out to go invent for the future, and have them not have had a course in toxicology and environmental mechanisms. So all of these things, what I'm trying to say here is that the champion work that Terry is doing, the path that he has laid is clear and unequivocal. We need each one to recognize that everyone has a role to play in this, and that there's all different aspects of this that have to happen. We need to adjust K through 12 education, undergraduate education, graduate education, industry, policy. This is not a single solitary issue. And like I said, it's no one I can think of is doing more in this field than the 2 gentlemen sitting in front of us here, and it's an honor to be working with them and helping them. Thank you.